never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's pro football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stones.
Am I going to get sued?
We got legal on this?
I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL Podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson, and PFF's
Mike
Renner.
Back.
Welcome back.
Do I have to move? I'm covering the Western Southern logo. I just realized. Are we going to get a sternly worded email?
It's unclear what our relationship is with the title sponsor these days, so I think you're okay.
I like it over your shoulder.
That's actually a good angle right there.
Your dashing good looks, though, could distract from the logo. Who knows? But welcome back, Mike. You're here to talk some ball, because that's what you do now.
I'm on my promotional tour.
You're on the promotion. So when do you hit the late night shows?
No one watches late night shows anymore. It's all social media. So I'm just trying to make TikToks promoting that.
You know, Aaron Schatz gets out there for the Football Outsiders annual. He gets on to like Seth Meyers and stuff like that.
Does he actually?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He was on there for that.
Huh.
They
just
let him?
saying. He may have broken in, but he was there. I feel like we need to do more of that.
This is the the PR tour, the promotions, those lists that we need to get on. We need to get on one of those. Obviously, Mike's doing it by himself. Mike's his own PR guy.
I'm just sending random DMs.
Yeah.
Well, we want to talk all sorts of football today. We want to talk NFL. We're going to preview the season with you, kind of get whatever takes you're willing to give to us that you're not saving for your new Talking Ball podcast. Maybe even talk a little college football, a little NFL draft, some rookies. We're just going to be all over.
We're just going to take the B-list takes from Mike today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you got to save the hottest ones for what's the new show here? It's called Talking Ball. Tell us about it.
With Mike Renner. So it's just me. I'm going solo. Obviously, Austin Gale left to go to the Ringer.
The late Austin Gale.
Yes.
We got emails calling him
RIP.
Yeah, the late Austin Gale.
Yeah, we don't talk about him anymore. No. He's dead to me. Even though he was
your first show.
He still lives in my
currently
place.
Your roommate.
Yeah,
right.
currently roommate. But just me, and it's mainly focused on trying to get as many interviews, longer form interviews with great minds around the NFL. We got Luke Fickell already on today's show. Luke Fickell's on. He had some great takes about analytics that made me want to run through a brick wall about how much he buys in to that. We have Brandon Staley on next week, Kevin O'Connell. So a lot of big names, going to be a lot of interesting stuff.
How do you get all these big names?
DMs. Not me.
Wow.
Someone else sent them.
That's impressive. We should steal some.
Is this on the RSS for Tailgate? So
yes.
Okay.
So if you subscribe to Tailgate, you will get that in your
smart.
phone.
Yeah. So the people that already like you, they're on.
Yeah, they're already there. They just need to fire it back up.
That's awesome. Check out Talking Ball with Mike Renner. We'll reference it plenty here because promotional tour. Where else are you going on your tour?
I went on Ari's show. Yeah. I'm still working on some other appearances here.
Some Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah.
Still some DMs we're waiting to hear back from.
Yeah. Well, that's good. You got some good guests there. That's great. We want to get into all sorts of football action. Sam, though, you want to give a little update on whether or not you can. Do you think Sam could throw 60 miles an hour? I don't think we've asked
that one's you can't just do it like tomorrow. With the lead up, I think you could.
Yeah. It's not like rolling. Where's the lead up? Have you been practicing?
I've thrown things.
This is what we're saying. Like Renner can roll out of bed and knock down some threes, right? You just kind of it's like riding a bike.
Muscle
throwing, even as a 90+ mile an hour thrower, 3 weeks before spring training, I was building it up. I was still in the 80s, and you just get up to where you need to be. It takes time.
You got to grease the shoulder capsule, right?
Yeah.
That's got to
grease the shoulder.
Internal rotation of the humeral head and all that stuff is crucial. And I don't think you've been putting the time into that.
You don't? How do you know? I could be grinding every day. In the backyard, throwing something at a wall.
You've been going to the miles per hour sign on the side of the highway, just throwing at it. I remember I did that once and it capped out at 45 miles an hour. So it just kept showing me 45, and I thought I was a little like, I thought I had lost it.
And he was a high school pitcher thrown in the 80s.
Have you ever done that?
But
Have you ever done that with where you try and run
past it? No, I haven't.
See how fast you get?
Does it work?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, well, it works if you're fast enough to trigger it.
Yeah.
I think you need to be like 15 or something before it even registers anything.
That was the original NGS.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting your player.
We don't need a chip
data.
in the pads. We just need to run past the traffic sign and see if we can get it to trigger the radar.
Well, give us a little update, Sam, if we're going to get to see this soon.
We're at $1,875 on the GoFundMe, which is, you'll find my pinned tweet at PFF_Sam or the description of this podcast. The money's all going to Needs Inc. to raise money to provide service dogs for people so that they don't have to be $60,000 of their own money out of pocket. Goal is $2,500, so we're getting there. We appreciate every donation, big or small, but the closer or the quicker we get to this, the better, because I want to find out if I can hit 60 miles an hour and rub it in your face.
I can't wait. I cannot wait to see how it goes. Anyway, go check it out. Pin tweet at PFF_Sam. Let's get into some talking ball here with Mike. We've talked a lot about rookies here on this show, rookies from the preseason and everything. First off, what are you looking for? How much do you try to overreact or not overreact to all of the draft work? You're our draft guy here. You've put all this work in last year. How much does 30, 40, 50 preseason snaps change your takes on players?
I think it does. I think it changed your takes on who's ready week one. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, who's going to make an impact. Like, I don't feel good about Traylon Burks doing anything early on in his career after what we saw. That's not to say I'm writing him off entirely, but after what we saw in the preseason, I don't think he's going to be A.J. Brown anytime soon. Maybe, second half of the season he might turn it on, but I do think it gives you a good handle on who's ready right away. And especially at positions like offensive line where, if you see Trevor Penning getting cooked in pass protection by backups, it's like that's only going to look worse when it's not backups, when it's starters. So I do think you got to know when you're watching a guy who he's going against, the competition level. That's always very important. Is it the ones? Is it the twos? Is it the threes? Which is something that was, very important with Kenny Pickett's eval and him looking great this preseason. Very akin, in my opinion, to when Daniel Jones looked great in his first preseason and everyone wanted to crown him. And it's like, well, he's doing it against backups, and it's a lot of easy stuff, and it's a lot of layups, and it's a lot of stuff that we already kind of knew from him. But obviously, you'd rather perform well than perform poorly. That's always a good thing. But I do think you got to keep the context of who they're going against. When a guy's looking good with ones, going against ones, that's when you start to really believe that early on in their careers, they could be making a big impact.
Yeah, to me, it's much more important the bad side of things than the good side. Like, a guy playing well in preseason doesn't necessarily mean anything, but a guy playing badly in preseason is a problem.
Basically, he's just not going to see the field, right? If he plays poorly in preseason.
Or he is going to see the field, and it's going to be even worse, you know what I mean? So that I think is the bigger thing. You expect all of these guys that you want to see during the regular season to play well in the preseason. And if they don't, that's where you've got issues.
And I think it's valuable for second, third year, fourth year players too.
Oh, for sure.
Those guys, you can see who's taking the next step. I do think from
there's also this weird world now where there's a bunch of teams that numbers 1 through 30 on the depth chart or on the roster, they're not playing at all.
Yeah.
The Rams aren't going to put the first 30 guys on their team are not going to see the field in preseason, and most of the next guys are getting cut. But it does mean that there's an absolute ton of playing time for those numbers, sort of the last 20 guys on the roster, and some of these guys can either win themselves a job for the Rams or put way more tape than anybody else is going to have to catch on somewhere else. There's a huge opportunity for some of these guys to play an absolute boatload in preseason and actually show that they deserve a spot where, if they're third on the depth chart in training camp, you're getting a couple of reps here or there. You're not even getting the chance to show that you can do anything.
And it's smart, right? Because with your starters, everyone said, if you come out flat week 1, didn't play your starters all preseason, maybe catch a little flack. And the Packers last year, came out flat week 1, obviously didn't matter. They ended up being the 1 seed in the NFC. So the downside of that to me is so far less than the upside of getting to know your second string and third stringers and what you actually have on your roster, being able to properly evaluate those guys, and then just staying healthy. 17 weeks, 17 games, 18 weeks. Guys get hurt. The healthiest teams are the ones that make it far in the playoffs. Getting a guy banged up, having a crucial injury in preseason is the worst thing you could possibly do. I don't care if you're not ready week 1. If that guy gets hurt in preseason, He won't play any week. He's not going to play week one anyway.
Particularly for the teams that, like, if you are one of those teams that thinks you are a genuine contender, if the one, like, even if worst case scenario, you lose week one because you come out, you're not ready, whatever. That one game should not be determining whether you win or lose, whether you make the playoffs or not. And if you make the playoffs, job done. Like, at that point, just get to the playoffs, get healthy. And honestly, it shouldn't even matter for seeding. Like, if you expect to win the Super Bowl, if you can't do it on the road once, then what are you doing? Like, you're going to need to beat a good team in the playoffs on the road, probably, if you're going to make the Super Bowl. So the week one readiness thing really shouldn't be an issue.
Well, the Super Bowl is usually on the road, except for last 2 years.
Yes.
Which is true.
Yeah.
It is interesting to me though, because we always talk about we work with all 32 NFL teams, and it really is 32 different businesses and different structures and theories and ways of doing things. And it kind of looked like the Rams might be the trendsetter. Like, other teams are going to just never play. It's not just starters, like you said, Sam. It's top 30 players don't see the field during the preseason, but other teams haven't done that. Still there are teams that still kind of throw their starters out. Every team has a different strategy here, but it's all been calculated, right? It's all been weighed. What do these 20 reps with the ones in a game? Let's weigh that against maybe a few extra practice reps and the injury risk and all of that stuff. So it is interesting, kind of like seeing the different strategies that teams use. Now, coming out of that, what I like to see the players that are just going to have roles this year. So, like an Isaiah Likely as a tight end on a team that needs tight ends but already has a Mark Andrews. Between training camp reports and then what he did in games, I think the Ravens have a tight end in Isaiah Likely. I mean, what do you think of him at draft time, and do you see him contributing immediately this year?
I was worried that he was going to go to a spot where people were going to ask him to be a traditional tight end. And he's not ever going to be. He's 235 pounds now. Played at like 230 at Coastal Carolina. And for the draft process, he gets up to like 245 and then just lost all his athleticism because it's not good weight. And you put on 10 to 15 pounds of bad weight, and you're just not going to be the athlete you once were.
Can relate.
Steve can attest. Wow. Sorry, it came right at you there. But we can all attest. I mean, we've all done that.
I've been there. Off this segment. Let's get him out of here.
So comes, I think he ran like a 4.8 something at his pro day.
The funny thing is, 10 pounds of bad weight for you, it's not even moving the needle. It's a rounding error. It is.
But so then,
I still look slim.
But was always this unbelievable receiver at Coastal Carolina. Was their top option in the passing game. And so he goes to a spot though where everyone thinks Ravens run heavy, like it's going to be an issue for him. It's like no, because they use two tight ends in such a way that they're move blockers. Like they're pulling across the formation. They're climbing the second level. He's going to be a slot wide receiver there as well in what he does. And so it kind of just, they said, take that weight off. Like get back down to whatever you feel comfortable at, and we'll play you in a role that's going to be conducive to it. So great, obviously, talent evaluation from the Ravens' perspective. And I think you've seen just the natural receiving ability. And he moves like the tight ends that produce at a high level move. And he broke 7 tackles this preseason. It's insane.
How many rookies have you sort of completely changed your opinion on? More on the positive side of things. We mentioned that Trevor Pennings and the way it can go bad. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's like the guys like Dak Prescott, where it's obvious immediately that everybody screwed up that evaluation. You know what I mean? In training camp, preseason, It's like, oh, wow, Dak Prescott's not a 4th-round pick. We goofed. The Isaiah Likely one feels like one of those. Romeo Doubs feels like, again, he's better than a 4th-round pick. How many of those guys did you see this preseason?
Well, I think 2 of them are on the Packers. I would also say Zach Tom.
Yeah.
And I was, not to toot my own horn, the PFF draft board was the highest on him of any public-facing draft board that was part of the consensus board. We have him 62nd overall. Obviously falls to the 4th round. But he looks like he's even better than 62nd overall. He was the best pass-protecting rookie tackle this preseason, just bar none. And he was running with ones when he did so. So I changed my tune on him in a positive way. Cam Jurgens, the Eagles center. I mean, you obviously didn't get a taste of what he can do in pass protection too well, but his athleticism, his ability to play on the move, whenever he takes over Jason Kelce, he's going to be legit.
Second-round center who has some Kelce-like traits.
And he was at the back end of our top 100, and in retrospect, that was just far too low. He's going to be better than that. Just looks
And it's funny because a lot of people's only exposure to Cam Jurgens this preseason was that one viral video clip where he's getting just walked backwards by Jordan Davis.
Yeah, which was kind of like one of the most overrated viral clips I've ever seen. But I digress. Another guy that I think is going to be just lights out is Nick Cross, the safety for the Colts. His his burst from a standstill is exceptional. I mean, for 215-pound safety, he can fly. He has as much range as any safety in the NFL right now, and just his ability to cover ground. So I think the Colts got a good one based on the preseason then. And then Samuel Womack, the nickel corner for the 49ers, he made 2 unbelievable interceptions, another pass breakup. He was a cornerback coming out of Toledo that, I'm like, he's 5'10", 180. It's like, what are you going to do with that at the NFL level? Well, playing in the slot's not as big a deal, and obviously the 49ers, their defense has a pretty defined slot role. So I think he's going to be a player for them that he was outside of the 250 for the PFF draft board.
I want to talk about some of those second and third year players as well, maybe, that you had talked about, because a lot of players do not hit the ground running as rookies, right? I mean, a lot of our data says, look, you don't even see what players can do until years 2 or 3. But first, if you haven't heard by now, Underdog Fantasy is the best and easiest place to play fantasy football this summer. We've all been there in fantasy football leagues. It's Sunday morning. You're digging through the news reports, trying to figure out whether to start your stud wide receiver that tweaked his hamstring last week, or you have a player on your team who hasn't been getting into the end zone, and then one week he suddenly goes off for 30 points on your bench. Well, with Underdog Fantasy, all the stress of who to start each week is lifted off your shoulders, because it's best ball format. Draft your teams before the season starts and get the best score in your lineup each week. Right now, you can draft an Underdog's Best Ball Mania 3 tournament to take your shot at $10 million in total prizes. Plus, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100 when you sign up with the promo code PFF. Also, if you play 10 of those dollars using promo code PFF, you get a free PFF subscription. Underdog drafts close just before NFL kickoff. So what are you waiting for? Head to UnderdogFantasy.com or the App Store, play $10 with code PFF, and draft your Best Ball Mania team today. So yeah, a lot of, if you look at WAR data and all that stuff, there's a lot of positions, O-line, D-line, where guys don't contribute much as rookies. You talk about tight ends a lot, right? I mean, when you're putting the draft board together, how many times have you said, I don't want to do first-round tight ends unless they're named Kyle Pitts. I don't want first-round tight ends, basically, because they don't do anything for the first, sometimes 2 years. Are there any of those players that are that you're looking forward to seeing, that you think might have roles this year, or even just preseason action that maybe stood out? Yeah,
to hit home that tight end, I actually looked up a stat the other day. 2 tight ends over 600 yards in the last 13 years as rookies. Only 2. Kyle Pitts, Evan Ingram. And obviously Ingram has been great. So, that's it. It's not a lot of guys.
Yeah.
But guys I was impressed with this preseason, honestly, Cole Kmet, I think looks good. I think he has a chance. He's going to be the number 2 option in Chicago.
He's in year 3 now.
Yeah, coming in year 3. Yeah. Very impressed with what he put on tape this preseason. Obviously, down the stretch last year, he was kind of building rapport with Justin Fields. So I think he's going to have a big year. The one guy I keep coming back to that I liked what I saw from this preseason that not a lot of people want to recognize, Tua. Tua looked good this preseason. He did. I think he was 12 of 15, and one of those was a drop.
5th highest graded quarterback, something like that.
Yeah, he looked legit. Another guy that I was really impressed with, who I think is going to be, and now he was good last year, but I think he's going to join that Pro Bowl elite caliber of the position, is Andrew Thomas. He just looked all around. No real mistakes on tape. Him and Penei Sewell. Both those guys are ready to join that group of tackles that, maybe they were close, maybe on the fringe last year, that they are just lights out.
How about both of those guys really struggling as they started?
Yes,
Andrew Thomas had an entire season of struggles. I think he had that one little stretch where it looked better in 2020, right? I know there were technique issues and changes or whatever. And then Penei Sewell was like the laughing stock of Twitter. Not that matters at all, because Twitter's not real life, but think about, he goes to right tackle and everybody's like, oh, they should have never drafted a left tackle and moved him to right tackle. It's like, well, just give the guy some time. And then Penei Sewell's one of the best right tackles in the league last year.
And it's kind of what I was speaking to about not overreacting to the preseason, just because I keep saying Trevor Penei, I don't mean to hammer him, because Evan Neal didn't look great either, but it's they might struggle early is what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're screwed for life. It's just first few weeks.
Yeah,
Penei Sewell last year.
Sewell's a good example of how even the negative doesn't mean it's, it doesn't necessarily mean it's curtains. Penei Sewell looked awful at right tackle in the preseason last year. Again, not necessarily going up against the most elite competition. Then they flip him to the left side because Decker gets hurt, and he looks fine. And then they move him back to right tackle in the middle of the season. You're like, oh, this is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, he's still fine.
Yeah.
The preseason meant nothing for him last year when it looked terrible.
We have some breaking news here on the show.
Oh, yeah?
Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos have agreed to a 5-year, $245 million extension.
Damn.
How about those numbers? 5 years, $245 million, $165 million guaranteed. Russell Wilson locked up. almost to like when he's going to be our age. What's he, 33? He's closing
33.
in on.
Yeah, I think he's 33.
Do you have a take on Russ and what he's been the last couple of years?
Oof. I think last couple of years. What's he going to be in
What's
Denver?
he going to be? But like I think the last couple of years he's looked different. Finger injury or not, has he lost a step? And does that affect his game?
You out here trying to fat shame Russell Wilson again?
I think he has lost a step. Like he relied so much on scrambling at points in his career that he's just not going to be able to do it that much. Now it takes him from like what was a top 5 QB back, 2016, 2017 to still a top 10 QB. Yeah. Because I mean the arm's still there. He still takes care of the football. And obviously after the thumb injury he was bad. There's no sugarcoating. Like he sucked down the stretch last year. Mm-hmm. But that was after a thumb injury that he came back from way too soon by all doctors' accounts besides Russell Wilson. And whatever the hell's going on there.
Russ had the mental reps going, though. He was ready.
Yeah.
He was ready mentally. The more and more we see these deals, right, as we thought at the time, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, they looking like steals. I think the Chiefs have something baked in where it's like, hey, Patrick, somebody's going to make more money than you, but we'll start throwing money your way too. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, they also, like, that deal was sort of set up to restructure every year where it just gets the check, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like even...
Yeah, but it doesn't... But restructuring just changes the cash flow, not the...
but it gives them a giant sum of cash in a, big, nice lump. It's like a dividend, except it's a dividend for $50 million every year.
He gets his own PM15, workout facility right next to the stadium. Was TB12. Remember, that's what he had with the Patriots, his own... partnership
comes up with his
Patriots.
Own workout program,
But the thing with Mahomes is, okay, yeah, you at some point you could agitate and get more money and a bigger deal and all those kinds of things. But like, part of the purpose of signing a decade-long $500 million deal is, the longer it goes on, the more team-friendly it's going to be. But that's kind of the point, because you're going to end up with that Tom Brady thing of you are paying for that extra slot receiver that you're going to need at some point, right? It's deliberately designed to be slightly team-friendly, which is ultimately to your benefit as well, if you're interested in your legacy. Like, once you're at the $500 million stage, what does the next $50 million matter?
Well, it's because, the winning at some point pays for itself in endorsements and goodwill in public. Like, Kirk Cousins ain't getting any. I mean, he may get paid every single year, but he ain't on State Farm commercials.
And also, at some point, it's the purpose of all this, right? Like, how much money do you need? Part of what makes Tom Brady is the fistful of rings in either hand. You know what I mean? Like, there's no purpose in just squeezing every last cent out of your career if you're gonna, you're gonna go down as an all-time great, but you have one ring.
I think you're missing the point a little bit, though, because you like to be in the head of billionaires, right? That's like one of your favorite things to do.
Uh-huh.
They look at scorecards.
Yeah.
Who are the other billionaires? Can I have more billions than this other billionaire?
But the most efficient way.
They have different aspirations, right? Like the average human's like, what are you going to do with $50 million? I'm going to buy my car and my house and I'm happy, right? But like people at that level, like, how do I own an NFL team?
Yeah, but at that level, the most efficient way of making more money is not the next $10 million you're going to squeeze out of the Kansas City Chiefs. It's taking the money that they've already given you, buying 17 franchises of something else and flipping that into 10x your investment. Like, Mahomes has already got more than enough cash to do that, and he has been doing that. You look at the amount of crap he's bought a share of since signing that deal. He doesn't need the $10 million escalator, 4 years into it. He's already massively inflating that sum of cash.
No, I get it. I understand. Any other players that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I'll throw out a few defensive guys because I thought Zaven Collins probably had like 3 or 4 more impressive plays in preseason than his entire rookie season for
first
the
2
Cardinals.
seasons. Really?
Yeah. So I was impressed with him. Think he may be taking the next step, and obviously they have like different role for Isaiah Simmons this year than what they've used his first couple of years. So excited about that. I thought Jeffrey Okudah looked kind of like the guy we expected coming out of OSU. I mean, he was physical at the line. Now, obviously, the fact that he's playing preseason and kind of had to play for his job is a little bit concerning, but I was impressed with what he put on tape. And then the guy that I'm like quietly optimistic about but not holding my breath for was Jonathan Abram. New role, obviously doing a little less in coverage. They had him blitzing a lot more than he ever did last year. Had him, running downhill a lot more than he did kind of in that static Gus Bradley scheme that they were running last year. So quietly optimistic, not holding my breath, though, because of how bad his tape's been the first few years.
He was a strong safety whose best work at Mississippi State was basically blitzing. He had that
Just
one game, I think he
yeah.
had like 7 or 8 pressures and was just creating havoc. I know those things pop on tape and they feel good, but it's like it's really tough to draft a safety. Like even Jamal Adams, he's still a good player. I mean, he's a very, very good player. But when you put him, Jamal Adams played more free safety last year than ever in his career, and he had the lowest grade of his career. It's like you have to put those guys in a position to succeed. So with Abram and the Raiders, maybe it's salvageable.
I come quietly confident about what Zaven Collins is going to be, the linebacker in Arizona. Like, he barely played as a rookie, and it felt well. I think part of it was because my week 1 with Isaiah Simmons in his rookie season, Kyle Shanahan just painted a bullseye on him and torched him, for a couple of big plays. And it seemed like that completely changed how the Cardinals had planned to deploy him year 1. It was like, oh, wow, he actually can't do this right away. We're going to need to scale this way back. Zaven Collins felt like he got that when I think they played Cam Newton, and he had like two bad plays in a handful. But they were the kind of bad plays where it's like you did the right thing. It's just that Cam Newton is Cam Newton, and sometimes you're not able to deal with that. And that was like, okay, you're to the bench. You're not playing anymore. But every time you saw him play, he plays the run differently to these other linebackers. He reads it really quickly. He fills the right gap very fast. Once he's there, he's a big body and difficult to get past. It always felt like he probably deserved more playing time than he got. And I don't think he was out of his depth in terms of coverage either. So, year 2 with that kind of time to develop and learn, I think he might be really good this year.
I want to get into some NFL draft discussion, but first, to all the gentlemen out there, all men strive for gold in their life, right? Gold medals, gold watches, gold everything. Have you heard this before, Sam? However, there's a certain type of man who goes the extra mile. He walks with the confidence of an eagle and giggles in the face of danger. He's a big, hairless winning machine, and when he unzips his pants, he sees platinum. That's right. Manscaped would like to introduce you to their best and biggest ultimate hygiene bundle yet, the Platinum Package 4.0. Manscaped is the leader in below-the-waist grooming. Now trust them with the whole shebang. They'll join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code PFF. Manscaped's brand new Platinum Package 4.0 is the biggest bundle they've ever offered, giving you a bulk discount on Manscaped's top products. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. It's 20% off free shipping. Manscaped.com. Use the code PFF. It's time you enjoyed the finer things in life and get yourself a Platinum Package for your Platinum Package. Well done, as always. Top notch.
Perfect.
Top notch. Manscaped, not me. Manscaped, of course. Here's the thing, Michael. Last year at this time, we had no idea who might get drafted near the top of the NFL draft. And I feel like that uncertainty ended up showing up on draft day, even though we all talked ourselves into, okay, there's 5 potential first rounders because all the quarterbacks always go high. The fact that last year at this time, it was like we're talking about Spencer Rattler and whoever else.
Sam Howell, yeah.
Sam Howell. And Howell gets worse, and Kenny Pickett comes out of nowhere and all this stuff. This year, I think there's more, true top 10 type of prospects, but there's also like 15 guys. I feel like I'm hearing 15 names of players who scouts like this whole, like, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a Joe Burrow breakout or a Kyler Murray breakout or a Mitch Trubisky breakout. I know you get that every year, right? Like everybody wants to be ahead of it. Oh, I said this in August about 20 guys. But aren't there a lot of names as far as draftable quarterbacks for this year?
There are. And I will say, though, if Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Alabama and Ohio State quarterbacks, Will Anderson, Alabama edge, and Georgia's Jalen Carter, if they're not top 5 picks, I'll be surprised. Like, it's the first year going in that there were that many guys where it's just they could take the year off. They could opt out.
Bryce Young? You think Bryce Young's that good? I mean, is he taller than Tua? I don't think so. Or is he going to get picked apart from a size standpoint?
If he just spent all fall in the weight room, it'd probably be better than first draft stock then.
If what?
If he just spent all fall in the weight room.
Yeah.
It's like 195.
I mean, he doesn't have the same kind of arm and tools that, say, like a Baker did at that size, right? Didn't that offset?
He's got a pretty big arm.
Yeah.
I will say. And he works the middle of the field really well. I don't know. We'll see. But there is then after that, those two, Anthony Richardson from Florida. Everyone's like, oh, we haven't really seen much of him if he breaks out.
That's just a guess, though. He is an incredible athlete who does not throw the ball well. Right
future
now.
Pro Bowl tight end.
Yeah, what do you think
Florida
about
legacy.
Florida being quarterback to tight end U? I think they've established a type. From
pipeline.
You've got Cornelius Ingram, Trey Burton, Cam Newton didn't make the move.
That's true.
Who's the other?
Tim Tebow.
So Tim Tebow did. Felipe Franks. Jeff Driscoll took tight end reps a couple years ago, and there's one. Who else was really? Jordan Reed was a quarterback in Florida. So is Anthony Richardson the next quarterback to tight end for Florida? Anyway, I just that's like a massive projection though.
Yeah,
He's got like
it's such
2 good
massive
throws on tape,
and he's played 6 games or something. So yeah, that one's huge projection. I think Tyler Van Dyke, the Miami quarterback, is a massive projection, but like big arm.
Yeah, you see the tools there.
Yep. Will Levis, Kentucky quarterback. Not as much of a projection as the other guys. I think he played well last year, and like he can run for real too as well. But he's a guy, if he balls out without Wandale, without as much talent around him this year, sure, he's going to be in that top 5 mix. Like there's guys that are that talented. I throw Tanner McKee in there, the Stanford quarterback, with just like guys who have tools that get drafted in the top 5 if they play good football. So yeah, it's a real quarterback class next year.
It just feels like there's a lot of those types around college football this year.
How did the preseason change your opinion of any of the rookie quarterbacks this year? So you talked about Pickett. I was impressed. The point you make is a good one in terms of, hey, look who he was doing this against. But to me, it was more important what he was doing than how well he was doing it. Like the fact, it seemed like my biggest concern with him was how slow his process is across the board. Like the average time to throw he had at college was glacial. That usually gets slower at the next level. Pittsburgh's offensive line kind of stinks. If you play at that speed at the NFL as a rookie, you're going to get murdered. And it felt like, whether this is coincidence or this is just how it worked, he went out there with the express purpose of showing that he can operate much quicker than that, and did, and was efficient doing it. And that doesn't mean he's going to be amazing, but it means at the very minimum you're looking at that and saying, okay, that's no longer a reason to keep him on the bench.
Literally everything you said, I echo. I think I said it on the last pod. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but he's the only rookie quarterback who my opinion really changed on, which my opinion was, I don't think he's ready to start right away.
Yeah.
And now my opinion is no reason for him not to start. Now, if Mitch Trubisky, if he played well, whatever, this preseason, fine, go ahead and start him. But I do not think Kenny Pickett's not ready for.
But that's now the determining factor about when he plays.
Yes.
It's like whenever Trubisky plays his way to the bench, Pickett's in immediately.
Exactly.
Like there's no longer he's not ready. We're going to have to hold on for a while.
Whereas the rest of the other guys, whether it's Malik Willis, it's like if you just found out Malik Willis could run in preseason, you didn't watch his college tape. You know, if you just found out that Sam Howell was like tough in preseason, you didn't watch his college tape. And if you found out like Desmond Ridder has like a big arm and is toolsy and like does a lot of the little things at quarterback position well, again, you didn't watch college tape. Like those were all things in college. I don't think anyone went above and beyond in terms of expectations. And truthfully, I don't think all three I would probably start right now for their respective teams.
It felt like Malik Willis hurt Treylon Burks during this preseason. So, after 2 games, Burks had 1 catch for 4 yards or something. But in both those games, he was open behind the defense. And at the point where the ball should have been in the air, Malik Willis was doing Malik Willis things and not throwing him the ball. Same thing happened in the last game. They force-fed him a little bit more. You could see, the athleticism, the stuff that was on tape when you first watched him. It's like, wow, this guy is an athletic freak. The reason we thought he might run like a 4.3 or whatever, that looks obvious. And okay, there's still work to do in terms of polish and being a complete receiver and stuff. But it feels to me like there is a role for him in the first team offense that makes him a threat consistently. And it's a much bigger threat with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback than it is with Malik Willis there.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like him or Nick Westbrook-Akina,
Yeah,
you got to know what you're getting with Westbrook-Akina, and it's not going to be.
I was there in person. And I saw Westbrook-Akina play well, so I'm now in person.
Okay.
He impressed me in person, so I like him now. So there you go. Any other sleeper type of quarterbacks? I mean, again, just like names that have been thrown around. Do we give up on Spencer Rattler now that he's going to South Carolina? Jake Hayner from Fresno State. DJ Uiagalelei. I mean,
that's the one I'm excited to see this year. If there's any like off the radar that's really getting no draft buzz, because as far as arm strength goes, he rivals Josh Allen. I mean, the guy has got an unreal cannon. Like that ball just flies out of his hand. And I'll put like Anthony Richardson in that conversation too. I think Richardson's got that big of an arm, to where man, no one goes backwards the way he did in his college career. No one starts as a freshman, looks good, and then not only doesn't look good as a sophomore, like sucks. No sugarcoating. It was a detriment to Clemson's roster as, 5-star number 1 overall quarterback recruit with a great freshman year. So something else is going on there that's not talent related. It is, between the ears, really.
Uiagalelei was like the number 3 favorite for the Heisman last year at this time, which kind of goes into the danger of projections. But people weren't wrong to have him there because he like you said, he had a good freshman year. He steps in at Notre Dame, for Trevor Lawrence and has the big win. He's got the tools and all this stuff, right? Did they win at Notre Dame? They won, right?
No, Notre Dame beat him.
They lost, but they had a good game.
And then Trevor Lawrence beat him in the
That's what it was.
AC championship.
But he had a good game. It was like,
he did have a good game.
This
he went for like 400 yards.
Yes, this freshman's having a good game. Our own George Shahori even called him the 3rd best quarterback in the nation. George, who doesn't watch any college football, still declared that. So he's good. So, yeah, that is a fascinating thing. And look, off-season mock draft time, things are all over the place. So think about how many people had, the great Christian Hackenberg in the first round leading into his final season.
He had same year, about very similar years to DJ too.
Yeah, so. I mean, it was painful watching Clemson's offense last year. But I think those DJ and Spencer Rattler and all of these guys, like, they're still talented guys. They're still talented enough that people saw them as top prospects at one point. But we know there's so much more than just tools and a couple good throws. So that is why I am excited about this college football season, because I do think the uncertainty at quarterback is unbelievable. Like, it is huge, and we're going to learn some stuff. Like, somebody's going to break out, and even in these first couple of weeks, like Joe Burrow looked like a first-round pick by week 2 of his last season. That stuff happens. So like these next couple of weeks, we're going to be looking at, okay, this guy's the prospect or whatever it might be. Yeah. What else from like a draft perspective? Or do you have anything?
Well, so a lot of people complain every now and again that the NFL should be able to step in like fantasy football GMs and veto trades that are clearly too lopsided. Do you think, though, that they should have stepped in and vetoed the Vikings-Eagles trade for Jalen Reagor because it's bullying?
This is great.
Because at this point, we're victimizing Jalen Reagor, and it's not fair. And in this society, in this time and age, we shouldn't be doing this to the man.
It really is. Like, if he needed a new start, whatever, that was pretty clear. Not there, though. Like, not looking at the guy who was drafted ahead, put up 1,700 yards in the season. While it
was bad enough comparing him when they're, time zones apart. Now he's going to go one rep later after Justin Jefferson has just like annihilated a cornerback and scored a touchdown. Reagor's going to face plant on his break and just lie on the ground as the ball flies over his head. I mean, come on.
I could see it being motivating, though. He's like, hey, I got to prove why. And obviously, he's never going to be better than Justin Jefferson, but like, I got to prove why I was drafted.
Did you see the video of him on the sideline theragunning his face during a preseason game?
Huge red flag.
I think
it probably feels good, though. I mean, those Theraguns feel good no matter where I've
put a bone. That doesn't feel good on bone.
Not on the skull. I don't think that would be good.
It was kind of like I've hit my bones before, and it kind of like it vibrates your body. I don't know. It's enjoyable. I like it.
Body is different to brain.
Yeah. You probably shouldn't be you vibrate your brain enough in football as is.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to legislate that out the game.
Yeah, you're trying to get rid of that. What do we miss on Reagor in general? What did the NFL miss on Reagor? He's so explosive.
I do think I've just gone away from raw wide receivers.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
There's so many of those guys now in recent times where you're like, the pieces are there for them to be really good, but they ran 3 routes in college, and it just doesn't. Remember, like Corey Coleman. Now, okay,
yeah,
it's always more complicated because a lot of these guys, like Corey Coleman, there's a lot mentally going on there in addition to the fact that he ran this Spartan route tree and wasn't a polished receiver, and that complicates the eval. But all these guys that you liked because they were athletic, they had the ability, but they worked in a college offense that just does not relate in any way, shape, or form to the NFL. And as good as the NFL has gotten at adapting their offense to sort of quarterbacks, maybe, they still suck at just using receivers that are bit part players. There's so few teams that are willing to take a guy who can only do 2 things and just let him do the 2 things. The Saints are really good at it. We saw it with Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas in year 1 ran like 3 routes. But they were like, okay, run 3 routes, and then we'll work on the other stuff, and eventually you'll be able to run everything, and then you'll be great. The Seahawks with DK Metcalf, they didn't ask him to do the stuff that he sucks at. So But most teams don't. Most teams are like, no, you're a wide receiver. You go out there. This is what you run. And if you're bad at it, you're just going to wash out and you're not going to be successful.
I was, it's not name dropping, but I was talking to an NFL GM the other day.
Well, it's certainly not name dropping if you don't drop the name. Yeah.
But I was talking to one the other day. You're supposed to do that smoothly. Talking to a GM and his right-hand guy, a couple days ago. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was just like a PFF thing. Sometimes we look at receivers as like, wow, there's so many good receivers, right? There's 20 good receivers this year. Who knows who they are? Like, how do you sort them out? And he was saying their scouts are doing the same thing. And basically saying the scouting bias of it's so much easier to say, look at all these positive things that this guy did. Look at these 8 plays. Look at these 10 plays that this receiver did. Look what he can do. And then he was basically saying scouts would tell me there's 20 good receivers and there's 3 good corners. And because corner is just a negatively driven play, right? You're going to have so few positive plays as a corner. It's tough to process that and everything. And sometimes that shows up in our data because and I thought it might be a data thing, but it really is this scouting and perception thing. What are your thoughts on that? There's a plethora of seemingly good receivers coming from college, but they don't always transition to the NFL.
I do think, kind of to Sam's point, they can be put in a role in college that's conducive to them producing. But that's not really a thing in the NFL.
I mean, Treylon Burks, great example, right? Look at what he was doing in college. That role does not exist in any offense in the NFL.
Yeah.
And this isn't even a criticism. Arkansas did a great job of saying, we have the best athlete on the field any given week. We're going to get the ball in his hands every possible way we can. We're going to line him up literally in every position on offense except the offensive line and get the ball in his hands. NFL teams are just not doing that for anybody.
Yeah. It's so if you're, you keep saying, what can you do? Focus on what can you do. If at the wide receiver position, your what can you do doesn't include being able to separate at a high level 8+ yards down the football field, you're not valuable at the NFL.
Yeah.
If it's, he can, take a screen to the house. That how many times do you guys take screens to the house in the NFL?
Right.
You could count on one time the amount of times the entire season that guys do that. He can run a good slant. Well, it's one-step slants, that's our stuff. It's completely underneath route tree. Some guys get by in it. There's so few that you can count them on one hand. It's just, you got to be able to separate down the football field, or else you're not. You are a liability in your receiving corps.
I just thought it was a fascinating discussion to kind of hear that from the draft room, so to speak. That some of their I feel like that's a pain point for me when I'm evaluating. I want to love all these receivers, and I only like a few corners. And it kind of is this scouting issue because of how things kind of translate in your brain. But it also happens with our data too, because it's easy to pull out good data on receivers and bad data maybe on cornerbacks. Get ready for the NFL Week 1 action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Bet just $5 on any football game and get $200 in free bets instantly. And now everyone can experience the thrill of DraftKings early win promotion. You get up 7, you win. Bet on any NFL team of your choice, and if your team leads by 7 points at any point during the game, you get paid instantly, even if your team loses. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF to get $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code PFF, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for terms and resources. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Tennessee, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. In New York, it's 877-8-467-369. One per new customer. Minimum $5 deposit and wager. $200 issued as 8 $25 free bets. From now on, we have the guests read the terms and conditions. Mm-hmm. Is that a rule? Can I make that a rule?
We should one day.
I have mine pre-read. You just insert it.
Yeah. One day we should call one of those numbers just to find out what's at the other end.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Red Line.
Report to people.
Yeah, the Tennessee Red Line feels like one that would be fun to call.
Again, I just want to know, why does Tennessee feel like, no, we got this. We can't go with 1-800-GAMBLER. We got to do this ourselves.
I told you.
Can we federalize 1-800-GAMBLER, please? If not if you can do that, then I could talk more about DraftKings and less about the terms and conditions.
That's government overreach, Steve. We can't have that. Not in this freedom-loving country.
It's the one place where I'll let them intrude.
States' rights.
All right, so let's go. Let's go. What about the rest of the draft? I always like to get that high-level draft view. Where are the strengths? Where are the weaknesses? And any other maybe players to watch this college football season. It's opening day. Week 1 starts tonight.
Defensive tackle class. You're going to love this. For best defensive tackle class since 2019, right?
Is that Dexter Lawrence at Oliver class?
Dexter Lawrence at Oliver. Quinnen. So this
yes.
DT class is for real. You got 2 guys in the top 10, 2 more in the top 20. Jalen Carter, I've mentioned, the Georgia defense tackle. Brian Brzee, who was the #1 overall recruit at Clemson towards the ACL last year. We'll see how he comes back. Jaquelin Roy, LSU DT. Siaki Ika, the Baylor DT, who's 350. You'll love his tape.
Yeah, he's awesome. The model seems to like him so far, too.
And then Gervon Dexter, Florida DT. Top 26 overall player. Yeah.
The Clemson D-line looks like it's similar to that Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, like when they were loaded across the board.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I could see them having 2 guys drafted. So that was what? Cleveland somehow went 4th. And then Christian Wilkins went like 13th.
Furl was
Dexter,
the 3rd best player there.
19th or something.
Yeah.
I can see him having 2 guys go high, and then maybe their 3rd, who's like, I can't pronounce his name. I'm not even going to try. It's the Okahora or whatever guy. He might go in like the 3rd or 4th round. Tyler Davis might go 3rd or 4th round. So it's a really talented defensive line. That's why I'm like high on Clemson despite DJ being DJ.
I love when that comes together in college every now and again, where just like the recruiting just kind of meshes in like this one year. It's like, wow, we're like 7 deep on the D line. I mean, that was Georgia.
And they got Xavier Thomas still.
Yeah,
he's still
you
kicking
loved
around.
him as a freshman, and he just
was
never,
so good.
Never
He was on that line with.
He's injured
Furl
early on here.
Yeah.
Going to miss early in the season here for Clemson, but that's Clemson. I think they play Sunday or Monday night against Georgia Tech, and I'll be watching that D line because they look loaded there. So the first good interior defensive line class in years. Mm-hmm. It was one of those things we've been asking for a while. Is this like a trend in college football? Because they just don't.
They haven't produced much.
They're not breeding these interior defensive linemen, but that's good to see that that group.
Somebody in the chat, James Rogan, brought up the idea of NIL. I'm curious, Mike, how do you think that this new world of name, image, and likeness, the idea that college kids can earn money, from themselves, how do you think that's going to change the draft?
I am very curious after last year's quarterback class and how that worked out to where, Sam Howell is making less right now than he would have if he would have transferred from North Carolina.
Truly is.
Malik Willis probably too. Like the top end quarterbacks in college football are probably worth $5 to $10 million in 1 year for a program,
which is like more than, unless you're getting drafted in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah,
essentially.
Exactly. Not even second
probably
round.
not even
probably first round. Like,
but at least the second, you can add some other stuff to it.
If you don't get a surefire 1 grade from the NFL, but you're a good college quarterback, it doesn't behoove you to jump to the NFL. And I think running backs too. We're going to see that. Running backs at the collegiate level.
Oh my gosh, they're going to make way more.
Might start getting paid more than they would
absolutely
in the NFL. So I do think those positions, you may very well see guys, whether it's Bijan Robinson, and we've already seen a good deal of running back movement.
Which is the exact. It's funny because that's the exact opposite of the usual track for a running back, which is you're a super athlete, you're the best player in your team in college, you jump as fast as humanly possible. Because the NFL career is short.
Yeah.
You're at your best when you're young, as young as you can get. You got to get that money now. Whereas really, you're going to get the same money in college, if not more, and you're going up against worse athletes. Stay the hell in college as long as you can. Take the 5th year off. Stay as long as you can possibly be in college because you're going up against guys that are nowhere near your level.
And the thing is, they're more valuable there. Like they're at their peak value.
Yeah.
At a collegiate level where they can truly transcend their offensive lines.
Yeah, so we try to explain that too. Running backs matter less at the NFL level because the talent level is so much higher.
The lower level you go in football, the more important running backs are.
Mm-hmm. And I love that because it's intuitive. It makes sense to me. But like even our wins above replacement numbers, our wins above average numbers show that like you can add to your team as a running back even just using advanced metrics. So running back is more valuable there. So maybe it makes college football better, Mike, if you're going to keep better players around. Because I think the initial reaction for people is like, oh, it's going to make it worse. Alabama's going to get stronger, which I do think is an issue, maybe. But maybe you have better players stick around longer.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, to a degree, because it's Alabama that's paying these guys that money. It's Jahmyr Gibbs transferring from Georgia Tech to Alabama to make a bag that's like, yeah, the better players are staying, but they're staying at the better schools.
But Jackson
so
State's
it is
throwing money around.
It is
everything.
Consolidating.
Yeah, but the other thing, it's not
pool,
like
unfortunately.
the problem with that sort of argument of it's going to create, it's not like there was this egalitarian landscape where anybody could win it anyway. Like the same 4 teams are in the college football playoffs every year anyway.
Well,
the way
yeah.
it was. Like
we're
not taking a perfectly democratized system where anybody can show up one year, go on a perfect record, and make the playoffs. Like those teams weren't making it anyway.
Yeah, but that was like a new construct too. Like the playoff itself kind of did its best to consolidate that talent because teams want to go to the teams that are in the playoff because it basically made every other bowl not to say they're meaningless, but like made every other bowl have less cachet and not nearly as much draw as it did in the past when you winning your conference meant a lot. Now winning your conference is just a stepping stone. Like people don't care if they win the Big Ten; they care if they win national championships.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a traditional college football fan in me that kind of wishes that the playoff wasn't so emphasized in everything because even like it's what people talk about. It's what ESPN talks about every single week, and it's like, oh, congratulations, you won the Rose Bowl, but you missed the playoff. So sorry, it's a bad season for you. Whoever won the Rose Bowl and didn't make the playoff. But I don't know. We'll see. I hate talking about conference realignment and all that stuff, but I do think we're getting into this world of mega conferences, and I think we'll have better matchups, right? Like you're going to start seeing Texas and Alabama every year, and you're going to start seeing these matchups of high-end players, and maybe fewer guys end up going to the NFL, and maybe there's a trickle down to NFL veterans, right? I mean, NFL veterans have been negotiating for more money. When you start negotiating for more money, and then your employers start to say, well, now you're too much money. And now the veterans start to get pushed out by the younger players. Maybe we'll start to see more of those 6, 7, 8 year veterans, sticking around. The Henry Andersons of the world will have more jobs when they're 6, 7, 8 years into that career.
That's all we're shooting for.
Anything else around the draft landscape, Mike?
Yeah, this running back class is. I know we can't talk running backs.
Is Bijan going to go like top 10 though? Is he going to be so tantalizing that somebody wants him in the top 10 again?
I don't know. Let's see.
Because there hasn't been
Gettleman's
one
out of a
since
job.
Barkley, right?
I'm trying to think of like GMs that we can say would draft.
Balky would grab him.
Jaguars will be drafting top 10. They just drafted one, but like that's too much talent to pass up if you're Trent Balky. I don't think he goes top 10. I do think he goes first round though. But it's kind of it might honestly the fact that it's such a good running back class hurt him in that regard because is the difference between him and Zach Evans, the Ole Miss TCU transfer, is he good? Is it that big that like you're gonna draft one top 10 in the other second round? I would say no. I think the NFL is kind of coming around the idea that that's probably craziness. So it's very good though. The amount of running backs I'm just counting them up right now. I think there's 10 in the top 100. And I don't even like, and that's
and you don't like running backs
with the pushing down of running backs to begin with. Like there's probably now actually I like this past year's running back class in terms of the top end talent, but there's all 10 of those guys would have been RB3 in the last class.
Yeah, interesting.
At least at the worst.
Because that's the thing. I think we wanted to make this grand statement after Saquon Barkley goes 2. You have Travis Etienne. You had Najee Harris, like you had a few first rounders or whatever the last couple of years, but it was like, oh yeah, teams are getting smarter. There's no running backs in the top 10, but there was no real top 10
backs,
running back talent. We got to test it again.
I'm excited to see.
This is the class of 2017 with Dalvin and Fournette and McCaffrey and those guys.
Yeah. So you know what's interesting though? 2018 actually had the most running backs drafted in the top 50.
Oh, that's right.
Of any draft since the turn of the century. So that was
Michelle,
Rashad Penny.
Yeah.
Saquon, right? And Chubb Michelle.
Kareem Hunt.
Kerryon Johnson.
Kerryon was in there. Yeah, that's right.
Weird class.
Teams still value running backs. Like they still look at drop-offs and tiers. I feel like they focus more on the tier aspect of it because they start runs in the draft.
There's no better argument for the fact that teams still value running backs than Kyle Shanahan keeps swinging for high-ish round running backs. Like of all the humans in the world, Kyle Shanahan should be never spend anything on a running back. I will pick a dude up off the street after the draft and we will turn him into a 1,500-yard back. Don't worry about it. And yet he's the guy that consistently goes, no, second-round talent, like big, 220 pounds, fast, get him. Grab him now.
And his father.
And his father,
Sure. Their best running backs, Alfred Morse. UDFA. I mean, even in San
you can
Francisco,
kinda see-
Elijah Mitchell, sixth rounder.
Terrell Davis.
You can kind of see why, though. Terrell Davis screws it up a little bit, but like the difference between Mike Anderson and Clinton Portis is why they do that. Because, yeah, we can get production out of anybody. Like Mike Anderson, Alandis Gary, whatever. Plug anybody in there, the dude will go for 1,000 yards, he'll get 4.5 yards to carry, and everything's golden. But if I get Clinton Portis back there and that dude is just insane, then I can flip him for Champ Bailey down the line because I've turned him into a god. Like, I mean, that's why they do it.
That's what I was going to say. Like, even the Ravens, who we
Wait, wasn't that the opposite way?
They traded Champ Bailey for
yeah, for Clinton Portis. They won.
Yeah.
It wasn't Shanahan with Denver, though.
Shanahan with Denver, yes.
So they traded away Clinton Portis to get Champ Bailey.
That's true.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
My bad.
But I think they do. Like
What the hell?
there's not advanced math.
I'm not saying that's what they didn't do it to trade him, but I'm saying like they were able to trade. They were able to turn Clinton Portis within that offense into a value asset as big as the number one corner in the NFL, because that's the difference between Portis and Mike Anderson or Alandis Gary, whoever else they plugged back there.
I was just going to say, though, even the Ravens, who people say, oh, nobody ever criticizes the Ravens. Every move must be good. They drafted J.K. Dobbins in the second round because I think they're doing
same thing.
The simple math. It's not advanced math, but like if I can get 5 yards per carry out of Gus Edwards, J.K. might be able to average 6 yards a pop in this offense. Like legitimately Jamal Charles-esque yards per carry just because he's got some speed and we're going to create some room for him. So a run-heavy team can kind of talk themselves into that.
Now, there's an argument to say that every single one of these attempts at doing that, like maybe since Clinton Portis, hasn't worked. And maybe they should stop doing that.
No, I get it.
But at least you can point, there's logic there that says that, yeah, look, you can get production out of anybody, but the difference in production between just a random stooge I plug back there and a dude that's legitimately elite is valuable to this team. And that's why we keep rolling that dice. It just hasn't worked for a lot of people.
That was like the Zeke argument.
Yeah.
But then, like, in retrospect, you'd still rather have Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, I mean, like, every move seems to be saying, okay, maybe you should stop doing that, but you can at least see the argument of why they're doing it. I have some NFL questions I want you to answer, Mike.
Go, Sam.
Number one, why are the Baltimore Ravens unbeatable in preseason?
They scout well, is what I think it is. They have, like, the best back end of the roster of anyone.
But shouldn't that, therefore, translate to, like, when they get a slew of injuries like last year, they shouldn't suck?
I mean,
they were competitive, right? Like they had an insane
conversion away from 2 wins. You know, I mean
their slew of injuries was also the quarterback position, both cornerbacks, and like how are you gonna exactly? Yeah.
But they're
left tackle,
literally 2 plays away from winning 10 instead of 8, right, or whatever they won.
All right, that's fine.
It's the same reason why they like lead the league in compensatory picks and are still good, is because they scout well into the later rounds and identify talent better than, as good as you possibly can in the NFL. As good as anyone has in the NFL.
Okay, question number 2. Did Baker Mayfield, in fact, say that he was going to fuck up the Browns, which he has since denied? And will he, in fact?
He definitely said it. Maybe not. Maybe not that, like,
I didn't
the exact.
catch this. So how was this reported?
Cynthia Freeland
reported it?
Cynthia Freeland was on a podcast or a show of some kind because she was doing the sideline gig.
Yeah.
And she had been talking to Baker. And I think this was a game that he didn't play or that he played already and was sort of chilling on the sideline. And she was talking to him, and at the end of it was kind of like, hey, good luck against the Browns in week 1. And she said that he said he was going to bleep them up, was her reporting of this, which has been translated to.
Even if he didn't say it to her, he said it to somebody at some point.
Well, my point was, like, that feels like it's quite an off-the-record comment that was just sort of thrown, let me tell you what Baker told me off the record.
Yeah.
Which he's since been, I didn't say it. People are going to make up whatever.
Should have done it the way I did. Some unnamed, I don't want to name names, but a quarterback who's starting against the Browns in week 1 said this. She's got to learn a little bit of that,
Yeah.
So I don't think he will. I think the Browns have a good defense. I mean, I think the Panthers win, but I don't think he fucks them up by any means.
How do you think he's going to play this year generally for the Panthers?
I think somewhere in between the last 2 years. Like, I think he's a steep upgrade over Sam Darnold, Cam Newton, whatever the hell else they were throwing out at quarterback last year. Carolina, PJ Walker. And I do think, like, his year last year, you almost throw the tape out the window. It was not health. Like, it was 100% health related because he was fine, gets hurt, gets hurt again, and then turns into a pumpkin.
You hear that?
So,
You've thrown out the last year and a half.
Throw it out.
Baker you threw out the end of 2020 because it was cold in a bunch of games. You got to throw that tape out. You got to throw out 2019 because Freddie Kitchens was there. You got to throw out 2018 because the Browns were terrible and they're whatever. So there's like 4 games since Baker came into the league that we can actually evaluate. Is that what you're saying? I know that's what you're saying because he's agreeing with you on last year.
I'm not saying it's helpful. I'm just saying that in order to fairly evaluate the man, you should probably toss out a lot of the games that are clearly skewed.
Yeah, no one else has played hurt or had weather issues or had bad coaches or had bad offensive lines. We're going to throw out every Baker game except the one game he came off the bench on Thursday Night Football and led that incredible win and looked like the next hero in Cleveland. By the way, he still is a hero in Cleveland. He was the starting quarterback for a playoff team the first time since '94.
I'm also not saying you don't do it for other people. I'm just saying for Baker, there was a large chunk.
Throw it all out.
Large chunk of that man's career that clearly isn't
He's
indicative.
a year 5. He's basically a rookie. We're going to learn about Baker this year until the left tackle, till Icky can't block anybody, and it's like, well, we can't throw it. Wait till next year. We'll evaluate Baker in 23.
I think he has good enough receivers to get by. Probably better receivers than he had in Cleveland. Maybe like ever in Cleveland. I like this Carolina Panthers receiving core, to be honest. So I think he ends up
their defense
somewhere around 15th, 16th best quarterback in the NFL.
Then they're a playoff caliber team. I mean, it's that drastic. It's Sam Darnold being 30th or 32nd at quarterback in all the backups versus they're a team.
Another player that we could have mentioned with the sort of second or third year breakout people from preseason. Do you think that Justin Fields has taken a big enough jump that he is going to drag the Chicago Bears to respectability just by force of will and talent?
I don't, just because of the sacks. Because I don't think he's improved upon that part of his game. If he had a good offensive line, sure. But he doesn't.
It does look, though, that the Bears' offense is going to do some of that for
That they
him.
know that they have a bad offensive line.
Yeah.
That they're scheming
They know
with
they know
express
that,
intent.
Right. They know that they have a bad offensive line, and they know that Justin Fields isn't great at doing that in the middle of a pocket that's collapsing. So let's move. Let's get him on the run. Let's roll him out. Let's condense this thing into half-field reads. Let's just reduce the number of plays where he can get sacked.
Yeah, boots, match, protect. Like, he's probably going to lead the league in time to throw, purely schematically.
Right.
Like, anyone would lead the league in time to throw based off what they were doing in preseason. So they know kind of that limitation, but like, it's still tough to run an entire offense based around just that. Like, there are times where, 2-minute drills like that doesn't fly.
I mean, even
and there's
Shanahan
just not enough
rolls the
talent.
guy
There's just
out.
not enough talent around.
When people evaluate Shanahan quarterbacks, they're like, you got to see him throw on the move. It's like they literally do it 2 to 3 times a game. Like, they literally roll him out 2 to 3 times a game tops.
No one called Matt Ryan a good throwing on the move quarterback before he was in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, they even did it with Peyton. I mean, that didn't go well, but anyway, yes, I think
Super Bowl.
It is encouraging though with Fields. He had some high highs last year. Steelers game, Monday Night Football. He had some high highs. He had some low lows though. And again, it always comes down to the consistency factor. But even if they do a little bit better schematically for him, I am interested in this whole Bears rebuild because they tore it down.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like when you're playing Madden, it's kind of fun to like tear it down and build it back up again. I mean, they're going all in on it, so you get to see what they believe in and where they're going to put their focus.
We talked about the stuff you can get from preseason, the stuff you can't. It's really dangerous when you start to get into the territory of, a guy looks more comfortable, because last preseason, Zach Wilson looked the most comfortable rookie quarterback, and as soon as the real game started, he looked like he was drowning out there. But Fields in year one felt like everything was done by pure instinct and just getting by and just figuring it out, ad-libbing, making something happen and hoping for the best. In preseason, this time around, he just felt more poised and comfortable with the entire offense, and it was like he was running the offense rather than just trying to survive and make a play. And if that translates into the regular season, I still think the supporting cast around him kind of stinks, but you talked up Cole Kmet. I think you're right. He's looked pretty good. Darnell Mooney does look very good, as much as it's still a little bit of a projection now. There's just enough there where if he's taken a big leap, like, the Bears might be okay.
There's enough there to evaluate him.
Yeah.
Properly. I don't think it's so bad. Like, I don't think it's as bad as, like the Dolphins situation last year with Tua, where it's like, I don't even know, like, I can't even struggle to call that an offense with what they had to run to get around their limitations offensively and the talent limitations. So I think they'll at least be able to run some stuff offensively that you can evaluate. Now, is it going to look, is it going to be evaluated on the stat sheet? No. It's just like, I don't think statistically it'll look like what you'd expect, a massive breakout to look like. But I do think you can still break out and look much better in this offense and perform to a degree that you're like, okay, this is our guy going forward, and sells to the coaching staff.
Do you have more NFL questions?
Yeah, but feel free to jump in anytime.
I had something I wanted to discuss. By the way, I just want to apologize to the chat because they pointed out Mom and Dad were fighting and poor Mike's over here, in between because I was yelling at you. I apologize. So this week, the Vikings released 2 2021 third-rounders, right? Kellen Mond and Wyatt Davis. Two draft picks. They got both of those draft picks in the Jets trade. And at the time, I was very complimentary of the trade in the process. And you liked Wyatt Davis as a player. I know he's had injuries and all that stuff.
His knees.
I just want to go back through that really quick. The Vikings traded down.
I think they cut all three of them. Chad Surratt, I think, was also cut.
Yeah, was he a part of the trade too?
No, but he was third round.
He was another third round.
They cut the entire third round.
I'm just thinking the two players that they specifically got in the Vera Tucker trade, they got rid of. Mm-hmm. So they traded down to 23? From 14 to 23. The Vikings. They trade from 14 to 23. They get Christian Darrisaw, and then in the 2 third-rounders, Wyatt Davis and Kellen Mond. The Jets traded all those 3 picks and moved up. They may have gotten one more pick in there too, the Jets. But they traded up to get Elijah Vera Tucker. And I was complimentary of the process because I was like, hey, you're going to get a comparable player at 23, and you get 2 free third-rounders. Now, the third-rounders obviously were terrible, and they're already released. But I still think the process was good. Am I wrong in agreeing with the process and not saying, because I'm not even worried about people calling me out on Twitter or anything like that. But I think the process is still good. They got Christian Darrisaw, who, by the way, had the exact WAR number as Elijah Vera Tucker last year. Christian Darrisaw and Elijah Vera Tucker are comparable starters. So the Vikings traded down, got a comparable starter, and picked up 2 third-rounders. Now, they didn't work out. Most third-rounders don't. But over time, if you accumulate third-rounders, you'll hit on some stuff. So I'm complimenting the Vikings process. Obviously, the picks didn't work out, but I think that's an example of the trade was still right by the Vikings. And I'm not saying it was wrong for the Jets necessarily, but the Vikings still made out fine.
I would say they got the better offensive lineman based off of the rookie years, based off of what I heard from camp, and based off tackle versus guard value.
Yeah.
Process was great. They just, if they trust the PFF draft board, they would have gone Davis Mills over Kellen Mond. There's the draft board said after the trade that they did not draft well in the selections they made in that third round. So that talent it always comes back talent evaluation. The more swings of the bat at talent evaluation, the more chances you get to get a good player. You just still have to be evaluated.
I think it was
able to evaluate talent.
It was unquestionably the right move, I think, for the Vikings. The only time I would disagree with that concept of process, because you got the better of it in picks, is when you're trading a veteran player, because there's a level of certainty that doesn't exist when you're talking about the rookies. Like Darrisaw versus Elijah Vera Tucker, that could have gone in any direction. It could have been a massive win for the Jets if Vera Tucker was amazing and Darrisaw sucked. Could have been the exact opposite, and everybody is guessing at that point. Whereas the other one is, the Bears versus the Raiders. The analytics, the data says the Raiders should make that trade every single time, but the things that happen afterwards is the reasons you don't necessarily, because that Khalil Mack is a superstar. You are trading, there's value in the certainty that he's awesome versus the complete unknown of you might suck at drafting his replacements.
The Raiders' issue in that example is that they added more pieces of uncertainty by drafting people who were not supposed to go at that time.
Yeah,
based off every other consensus board.
Right.
They should not have drafted Cleveland Ferrell at 3,
but actually,
Jonathan Abram in the first round, Josh Jacobs in the first round.
When you look at the Raiders have made an all-time balls of drafting in the first round over the last however number of years. But if you actually look at the players they would have taken if they'd just gone by the consensus board, it's not that good. It's not, you can obviously cherry pick and you go, well, if you actually got the Pro Bowl player that went in the third round, you could have had this,
Sure.
But if you actually went with the consensus board when the times the Raiders have been drafting, it's better. I mean, obviously it's better than guys in jail and guys getting cut, but it's not as good as you think it would be. So, there is value to the certainty of veteran players. I think that's different from the Vikings-Jets trade where everybody involved is an unknown quantity.
I love how people in the chat think you sound Canadian now. That's awesome.
Oh, it's a rough.
There's some like 2013 PFF NFL podcast out there still, or like old. What was it, Google?
There's like it's like Neil's memorial upstairs. There's evidence that I used to sound Irish at some point.
Yeah, you sounded really Irish at one point. Now you're just pretty much Canadian.
It's that guy from the Golf Channel, where people hear him and it's like, where the hell is that guy from? That's just a mess of an accent. Yeah. That's what I got.
You're
right
like
now.
half Minnesota, half Canada.
Yeah. All right, Mike, you were patting yourself on the back for what would have happened if they just used the PFF draft board. I want to refer you to comments you made at the time of the draft when you referred to the Davis Mills pick as just setting on fire a draft pick.
I still stand by it.
I was going to say, have you changed your tune in any way, shape, or form since Davis Mills has been taking NFL snaps?
Well,
it's a question. You can't disagree with a question.
I'm going to disagree. Well, because he's doubling down on his take.
Right.
Yeah, I still think it is because I think it's going to stop them from drafting a quarterback at some point. Now, they got lucky to a degree, and there wasn't a strong quarterback class this year. There was no one to draft anyway. So, they weren't going to get a quarterback, but he's going to look okay this year, and they're going to talk himself into a third year of Davis Mills, despite there being not a ton of evidence to – and he didn't look good this preseason. Not a ton of evidence to the point of him ever being like a high-end quarterback. Like Daniel Jones. Where's the evidence? Where's he ever put on tape that he can be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? Didn't do it in college, hasn't done it in the pros. I think that's how I feel about first preseason. That's where your point.
Where Rudy apologized.
Okay. Yeah. So that's why I thought it's lighting a pick on fire because. Yeah, he could work out. It obviously could turn into a franchise quarterback. There have been, 3 over the last 15 years that have worked out, whether it's Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr, outside the first round. I think that's
Andy Dalton.
Russell Wilson. There you go. 4. And
Dalton still counts.
Dalton doesn't count. Dalton's the exact thing I'm saying right here. If he turns into Andy Dalton, that's lighting the pick on fire because you're not getting to the place you want to go with Andy Dalton. You're talking yourself out of other quarterbacks that could have been the guy for you. Okay. And that's what I worry about with this pick is that they're going to continue to do that.
To me,
and give him every chance to fail because they have no one else, no other options.
I think the chances are they just see what he has this year and then move on. I do think, though, that the way he plays is dangerous in terms of that, in terms of it could trap them into buying, because he's that Jameis Winston, volatile. He makes just enough really big plays and offsets them with enough really terrible plays that if you're looking at this,
we just cut down on the bad.
You can talk yourself into, hey, he's capable of these really incredible plays, and if we just stop him throwing the ball to the defense every 2 minutes, we're getting somewhere. So if you come through this entire season and the situation around him still isn't great, he's made a bunch of big time throws and a bunch of turnover-worthy plays, there's going to be a group of people in that building that are arguing for, hey, if we just fix the offensive line, if we just get him one more receiver, if we go to work on the cutting down the mistakes thing, we got a quarterback here, and that's where it becomes a problem.
So you're getting into the psychology of the pick, whereas I just I don't completely neglect that, but I kind of push it aside and said, okay, theoretically, even Kellen Mond in the third round, that same draft, you cannot waste a third rounder on a quarterback because the payout could be incredible. Even if he becomes a good backup, the payout is still worth it in the third round. Jalen Hurts is the other guy, by the way, in the second round who could turn into a valuable starter, right? We're still waiting on him. And I thought Jalen Hurts was a good pick at the time, not even because I love Jalen Hurts, just because it's like he becomes a good backup or becomes a player that you trade, or, okay, maybe you lose a second-round pick and it's not worth it, but the payout is incredible. Turns out the psychology of the thing turned into this domino effect of Carson Wentz felt bad and they had to trade him and this whole thing, right? So that stuff does exist, but I don't think you can waste picks on quarterbacks because if you miss, you miss. You're gonna miss on quarterbacks the same way you're gonna miss on tackles and safeties and the whole thing. But the payout of hitting on a quarterback is so incredible. But you have to stay disciplined though, and that's I think what you're pushing back against.
Yes.
And maybe the Texans won't stay disciplined. You have to stay disciplined to say, I'll continue to take quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And not buy into mediocrity.
I think
and the thing is, if there was a quarterback this year, I don't think they were taking one, right? Which was the worry. The reports were, and obviously maybe that was after they had evaluated this quarterback
probably
class.
Based on who they saw.
But if there was, I don't know. So
I think it was probably
the Malik Willis pick is incredible for the Titans.
Yeah, but I think it was probably also they hadn't really started the project yet. you know, because it was so late in the day by the time they got rid of Deshaun Watson and got all the trade collateral for him. They hadn't really, like, I don't think they wanted to put a quarterback there until they'd at least built something for the thing to function. And Davis Mills can be the sacrificial lamb for 1 year until they get a few pieces around him. And then next year they can put a quarterback in there, and we're not immediately setting that guy up for failure. I think it comes down to, though, I mean, look, yeah, always take a swing on a quarterback because who knows, you might stumble into Russell Wilson and everything's golden. I think it kind of comes down to, though, your draft eval on the guy. Like, the reason I hated the Davis Mills pick is I was like, there's almost 0% chance that guy, within his range of outcomes, probably does not exist as starting a high-level NFL quarterback. Therefore, there's just no point in this pick. And obviously, the Texans felt different, but you still kind of see the same thing. It's like, there's so much bad that it's almost impossible to see a world where he eliminates all of that and you end up with a high-level quarterback.
That's the thing. It's like he probably could turn into a top 32 starter, like one of the 32 stars in the NFL.
Yeah, but that's no longer at the
I don't think that exactly.
Target.
That's talking yourself then out of.
That's
you
Marcus
can turn
Mariota,
it into
that's
Andy
Daniel
Dalton.
Jones,
Yeah.
all those guys
They're
that
like
people want to move
one
on
of the 32 best starters, sure.
Trubisky,
The starters
borderline?
18 through 32 do nothing for you at the NFL level.
And it's even higher than that now. Because, like, you look at a team like Philadelphia. Maybe Buffalo has a better roster than the Eagles top to bottom, but Philadelphia's probably 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And yet they could end up making the postseason. And if Jalen Hurts isn't markedly better than he was a year ago, they're going to get bounced by any of the other teams that are legitimate contenders because those teams have a good roster and an elite quarterback. And if Jalen Hurts is just like number 10, that doesn't cut it anymore. You need to be you need to be capable of top 5 play in a given week. And I don't know that he is yet.
I want to wrap it up. Do you have any other questions?
I was just going to ask about the NFC East. So what do you make of what the Eagles have done this offseason and what Dallas has done and how that changes the balance of the division?
Yeah, Eagles I thought did a great job of they were in bad cap situation, after the COVID year. A lot of teams were. I thought they did a great job finagling around that. Now they're kind of still going to pay for it at some point with some dead cap here in the upcoming years, but did a great job of reloading, and obviously that starts with drafting well too. So very impressed with how Roseman's done, but again, it comes back to quarterback. Dak Prescott versus Jalen Hurts. And now I'm curious to see how Dak fares without Tyron Smith because throughout his career he's turned into a different quarterback when he hasn't had Tyron Smith. So that's obviously a big worry. Yeah.
I mean, since they've had Amari Cooper since middle of 2018, those splits are pretty distinct.
Yes. So that one's going to be interesting to watch. I feel a lot less comfortable with them after losing those two guys. I still think they're the best team in the division, but Eagles are probably the best roster in the division outside of quarterback.
It's about the odds are now, I think they're tied, right? They're like joint favorites at this point.
Yeah.
It was Dallas by a long way earlier in the offseason. It's moved Philadelphia's way. I think the closer we get to the season, it's going to end up Philadelphia will be the betting favorite.
Those are incremental moves. I mean, we're talking about the Cowboys lost starters and the Eagles added quality starters, left and right. I mean, that was...
And just kept going. Every phase of the offseason, they've added somebody that should be a useful addition to that offense, whether it was big money free agent Hassan Reddick, whether it's the draft, and 2 different ways in the draft, right? Trading for A.J. Brown and adding Jordan Davis. Cam Jurgens probably won't be a feature this year, but Nakobe Dean could be.
Yeah.
And then later on in the process, the Giants cut James Bradbury, yoink. We'll grab that. And then, the Saints are going to cut Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, or they're trying to get rid of him so they don't have to pay him. We'll grab that. Steal of a trade there. They've added a player every step of the way, and yet Dallas, if anything, have sort of hemorrhaged talent at every step.
Yeah, the off seasons for those two have been just like arrows pointing distinctly opposite directions. And those Eagles are exploiting kind of what we would call the market inefficiencies for roster building, which are players cut by other teams because their cap hits were too high. They're still good. They're still good, but not $20 million a year good.
Right.
And players that their team wants to get rid of because they're not going to re-sign them and wants to get anything back from. The 4th, 5th rounders are throwaways by actual draft perspective, by draft value perspective. That's not the amount of guys that hit at that rate is so low that if you can get any guy that can start for your football team at that rate for what they're having to pay C.J. Gardner-Johnson this year, you should do it in a heartbeat.
Plus draft night, I'm like, who's coming out of the first round happier than the Eagles by just forget it, even if they didn't have Jordan Davis, but just by having A.J. Brown, Is there a better move that if the Jaguars had a choice between A.J. Brown and $25 million or Trayvon Walker at first overall, I would take A.J. Brown and $25 million. Every pick along the way in the first round, I would take A.J. Brown and $25 million because I'm blinded by receivers and great receivers and all that stuff. But I just thought that was a great way to come out of the first round with the Eagles. And they also got Jordan Davis. So I know it doesn't matter a ton, but last year at this time, we were sitting there looking at the Eagles and their cap situation and the talent turnover, and it felt like they were stretching this 2017 Super Bowl team as long as they could go. And it was like, well, this is a 2-year rebuild. And it was really a 1-year rebuild. They made the playoffs last year, and they made themselves better. So I've been really impressed. I think you hit the nail on the head, too, on how they're adding these pieces at the right time on the cheap.
It's also a great example of how you can hedge at quarterback and kick collateral into future years for precisely opportunities like that. You know, the Eagles could have deployed a ton of first-round picks, or a ton of draft capital previously, and instead they've been trading into the future years so that all of a sudden they roll up and they can go, oh, A.J. Brown's available? Yes, we'll have that for a first-round pick and still be able to grab a guy like Jordan Davis. The Eagles have done, I think, a really great job of team building over the last several years. And some of the moves they made have been unlucky and just haven't worked out. But all of a sudden they're catching a few break in their direction, and it looks great.
Now imagine if they just drafted Justin Jefferson over Jalen Reagor.
Yeah,
and that's it. No, I think the Eagles have done a great job there. There was one. Did you have anything else to ask? Man, you came prepared.
I mean, look, it's the NFL season's about to start. There's questions all over the place.
I want to get, if you're done, I do want to get Renner's predictions. Are you allowed to give your predictions here, or do we have to tease talking ball for you?
No, I can give some predictions.
Okay, I want to get your season predictions, but first I need to remind people that PFF now has an app. After several years of people asking, where's the app? Where's the app?
Many years.
Well, it's in your app store. PFF is now in your app store with industry-leading fantasy football advice, exclusive betting dashboards, the latest premium football analysis, all in the palm of your hand. The app is free to download and use right up until the 2022 season starts. And when you sign up, please just leave us a 5-star review with your Super Bowl prediction. We're about to get Mike Renner's Super Bowl prediction. All we want you to do is go in, download the app, leave your Super Bowl prediction with a 5-star review and the final score. And then we'll share the best ones on the show. So we'll take a look. We'll scour them. We'll have our people scour them. We'll give the best Super Bowl predictions right here on the show. So check out the PFF app in your app store. All right, Mike, give us I want one big storyline for the season, if you could think of that. What's the biggest storyline or a storyline you're interested in or watching this year, and then your season prediction for Super Bowl?
I think there's probably 3 storylines that I would highlight. One is just the AFC. I don't think I've ever seen a conference top to bottom as loaded as the AFC, and just how East, North, West shake out. I mean, there's going to be very good teams at home in January. So that one's very interesting to me. 2 is the second-year quarterbacks. Hyped up that class all year long, all draft season, only to fall flat on their face come season 1. What are they going to look like? And then 3 is I just think the proliferation of offensive and quarterback talent around the NFL. Are there going to be any good defenses? Because there's so much, everyone kind of has a guy now, at least that they have hope at the quarterback position. There's so few teams that really are bereft of complete offensive talent that you're going to be like, this offense is going to suck. There's probably, you count them on one hand. And usually going into the season, that's like a dozen that you're saying. So is it going to, what's going to be the deciding factors for a lot of these teams? So those are the 3 things that I'm very interested to see.
If year 2 quarterbacks do take that leap, then what you're saying is absolutely true, right?
Right.
How many teams, like if Zach Wilson is better and Trevor Lawrence is better and Justin Fields is better, how many teams really don't like their offense? Now Fields has a tough situation, or
Lawrence does too.
Mariota's got a tough situation, I think, in Atlanta. So Lawrence has a tough situation relative to the rest of the league. But if those guys take big steps forward, it is an offense-heavy league maybe this year before we get into injuries and the whole thing. Did you have any other questions, though? Do you have any other stuff you want to bring up before the Super Bowl prediction?
We can get his prediction.
All right, Mike, who's going to win the Super Bowl? And what's the Super Bowl? And give us a score.
Green Bay Packers.
Score.
Of course.
Over the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be semi-low scoring. I'll go something like 21-17.
Like 9-6. 21-17.
Packers over Bills.
Packers over the Bills.
Best defense since they won the last Super Bowl. That's all it takes.
Green Bay getting to the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl is what does their wide receiver group look like this year?
Talk about the we don't always have Packers ownership in the room.
It's
here.
true.
I was gonna say when you said you're talking to a GM, I scoffed. I'm like, well, you're talking to owner. Right?
Yeah, I have an owner. We don't always talk to ownership here. So, what are your thoughts on the Packers, their offseason, and their prospects this year?
Well, no, simply how are they getting to the Super Bowl with that wide receiver room is the question.
Their
Devontae
defense.
Dobbs.
And the fact that Aaron Rodgers guarantees you some caliber of offense that's top 15 in the NFL. And Aaron Rodgers with, once healthy, top 3 offensive line in the NFL. I mean, that offensive line when healthy is maybe the best pass protecting offensive line in the NFL. At least you could probably say that, which is, yeah, maybe guys can't get open right away, but if you have 3.5 seconds with Rodgers, guys will get open enough. And I trust Matt LaFleur to scheme around that talent deficiency. He deserves that credit for what he's done the first 3 years there in Green Bay. So that would be my sales pitch. Like, yeah, maybe they're not the top 3 offense they were the last 2 seasons, but I don't think they're going to have to be with how good this defense is.
So. Okay, but we just finished saying how, the NFL is absolutely stacked to the brim with offensive talent, and it might not even be possible to be an elite defense anymore because everybody's got an offense that can light you on fire. And in response, on the other side of the ball, you don't have anybody to get the ball to. That feels like it could be a problem.
I will say it's not like Sammy Watkins is still competent. Their running backs are very good. Watkins is competent. Romeo Dobbs could be a legit dude as a rookie. Could save them. I'm not going to hype up Alan Lazard at all. I know he's not good. So but it's Rodgers is the other thing. Keep going back to it.
The only concern though is that the last time Rodgers didn't have an elite number 1 wide receiver, he had a grade of 75.
Yeah, what was that, 2015?
Yeah, in the 2 seasons either side of that, he was above 90.
Yeah.
What do you think about his career progression too? Right. I mean, he wasn't bad. He wasn't this weird dynamic where the PFF grade was better than all of the other advanced analytics until 2020, and then they matched up again. It was like the grade was excellent, the results were excellent. Those 2 years with Matt LaFleur, but then you have the age factor as well. Every other quarterback besides Brady has dropped off at 39 or 40 years old. Do we see any of that with Rodgers at this point, or is he another one that's going to buck the trend and play for a few more years at a high level?
I think he will. I don't think he's dropped off in terms of arm or accuracy. Now
you buy into the cleanse and all that stuff, right? He had a good cleanse in April, so
I do think his mindset is different.
Ayahuasca.
Like he did have a change of mindset in 2020. Whether that was ayahuasca related or not, only he knows. But he did. It was obvious on tape, and it's something like that. Everyone who had watched him throughout his career from about 2015 through through 2019 with that kind of blip at the end of 2016 when he got pissed off and started just throwing the ball over yard and ended up making the NFC Championship game somehow. That every stretch outside of that, he had changed the way he played, and then kind of that reverted back, and he's won back-to-back MVP since then. So I do buy into the change that even if he doesn't have guys who are getting open, he's still going to put the ball accurately where it needs to go. Now, he might not have big windows, but he's probably the most top 3 accurate quarterback in NFL history. So that's still buying into that.
Well, there you go. Packers are back. Some people they're mad in the chat. They're mad at Mike's Super Bowl prediction. So bring your own. I mean, it's what the chat's for. Bring your own Super Bowl prediction. And then smash the thumbs up button.
There you go.
Smash the thumbs up button.
57 people so far have hit like. That's just not enough.
Yeah, we should be at 300. We should be at 465. That's how many people are sitting here right now.
There we go.
Watching us right now.
469 now. That's 4 more.
Now
likes.
It's cooking.
4 more likes.
469 thumbs up on the YouTube channel.
Minimum.
Here. So anyway, Mike, tell everybody where they can listen to your to the new show, Talking Ball.
Talking Ball, wherever you get your podcasts. I believe. I don't know. I go to Spotify or Apple.
It's probably on everything. But,
yeah.
Spotify. Austin Gale, rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
He's over there.
R.I.P.
Just coaching up Joe Rogan and everything, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got some one-on-ones with Rogan.
I bet Joe needs the help.
You got some action items for you on your next show here.
Him and Joe Rogan on a podcast would be. Wow. I don't think they'd be able to coexist.
Could you imagine?
Joe Rogan wouldn't be able to get a word in.
Yeah. Well, Joe would need to medicate him with something. Just to slow him down to the point.
Questions and Austin's just firing off.
It's, hey, have you tried some of this stuff? And then Austin, no. Eventually, you get 3 or 4 enough drugs into his system, then we can slow him down to a level where there's a meeting of equals in terms of frequency of speech.
Excuse me.
I'd watch it though. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I would watch that too. And Austin Gale was your first guest. Just
He
to
was.
make people even more sad. Your first guest on Talking Ball. But my last question here. You're going to monologue some of this thing? You're monologuing some of it and having guests? Like, how much are you doing on your own here? That is a challenge.
I mean, it's me for an hour of the show. Now, producer Mike Quinn, jumps in for some segments where we do like some power rankings. He'll give his takes. We do some Would You Rather stuff where he gives his takes. But, when we get into that analysis, it's like a one-man radio show.
Yeah.
You listen to Jim Rome, you listen to Colin Cowherd. It's going to sound similar in terms of just pacing and how the show works.
You just compared yourself to
Jim
Colin
Rome,
Cowherd.
Colin Cowherd, Mike Renner.
It will sound – I'm not sure if I want to sound similar to those guys, but I was trying to give some –
Embrace.
My player comps.
No, we embrace.
Player comps are always like the high end.
Yeah.
Like you're always like
Who's a
player
bad
comp of
one-man radio
Patrick
show?
Mahomes. Everyone gets the Mahomes comp every year.
Yeah.
That's my Mahomes comp.
You're the next Colin Cowherd. Is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
No, we embrace being able to compare without equating here. We embrace that.
Yeah, but now we can't think of who's just a shitty average.
Well, they usually get canceled.
Who doesn't
so
want-
like if this thing gets canceled in a year, we'll know. It'll be the Renner. It'll be like there's Jim Rome and Colin Cowherd, and then you don't want to be Renner. One-man show gets cut. We'll see. We'll give it a few months here.
Who's like a one man show? Was it Clay Travis? Did he do a one man? I don't know. I'm trying to think of one man radio shows. That
All I
didn't
know is
last
Vin Scully would announce baseball games by himself,
Yeah.
and they never got boring. He was incredible, and it was baseball.
Yeah.
Vin was the man. Be the next Vin Scully, Mike. Go get him. Go check out Talking Ball wherever you download podcasts or right here on our YouTube channel. Next week, we have to do our own predictions, Sam.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Probably do that next week, right? Leading into the season. Next week is game week. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again here on Monday.